Great, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Washington Ethical Society. I am Emily Newman. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm your officiant today. WES is one community unified across time and space, gathering for these Sunday platforms to affirm our values and commit to a better world. So I want to welcome all of those who are here in the hall, those who are watching now on Zoom, and folks who are catching the recording later. If you're on Zoom, please check the chat for welcome. I already see it's pretty buzzing, so lovely to hear from people. And you'll get some tips from Judy Myers, our Zoom chat usher today. And if you're here in the hall and you would like an assistive listening device, please ask the sound team at the back. A special welcome to visitors today. We'd love to get to know you and answer any questions you have. To get on our email address, you can fill out the connection form at tiny.cc/wesconnects or send an email to wes@ethicalsociety.org. And if you're here in person, we invite you to stop by the welcome table after platform or just chat up anyone with a name tag, or really anybody, but the name tag people may have a couple more answers for you. And folks can share joys, concerns, or sorrows that they would like to let Casey, the pastoral care team, and our community know about. So you can fill out a blue WES Cares form that you can find at the welcome table, fold it, and either place it in the collection basket or hand it to the greeters. And we will pass that over to Casey. There's also a digital form you can use, tiny.cc/WEScare. I'm going to check Zoom chat. I see some people have said that they wish they could be here in person. Hope to see you another time. Glad you're still able to Zoom in. And some people are enjoying their breakfast while listening, so super jealous. Sounds great. Nice. Those are some reminders. Thank you, Judy, for being on top of that. And we got a first timer, so welcome, Marielle. Not to put you on the spot, but you put it in chat, so cool. All right, so we'll check in with Zoom later on, and it's a good time, good to connect and share this time together. Our opening words this morning are from We Answer the Call of Love by Julia Corbett-Heimer. In the face of hate, we answer the call of love. In the face of exclusion, we answer the call of inclusion. In the face of homophobia, we answer the call of LGBTQ rights. In the face of racism, we answer the call of justice for all races. In the face of xenophobia, we answer the call of pluralism. In the face of misogyny, we answer the call of women's rights. In the face of demagoguery, we answer the call of reason. In the face of religious intolerance, we answer the call of diversity. In the face of narrow nationalism, we answer the call of global community. In the face of bigotry, we answer the call of open-mindedness. In the face of despair, we answer the call of hope. And today's opening song will be performed by Perry Biter. Thank you, Perry. Each week, we read our statement of purpose as a reminder of our shared values. If you're interested in taking a turn to read the statement of purpose, you can sign up at tiny.cc/readsop. You can read it here in person or make a recording that we'll include in a future platform. So today's reader is Laura Steele, and she is leading the stewardship team along with Ruth Masterson, Mark Meyer, and Denise Howell.
And I'm putting in a little pledge. Save the date. It's going to be great. March 17 is the place to be. The Washington Ethical Society is a humanistic congregation that affirms the worth of every person. We strive through our relationships to elicit the best in the human spirit. With faith in human goodness, we appreciate each person's unique capacities. We joyfully celebrate together and support each other through life. We nurture a sense of reverence and responsibility for each other and the earth. We warmly invite you to join our community of children and adults as we work for a world where love and justice cross all borders.
Thank you, Laura. As Laura lights our community candle, I invite everyone to join in our candle lighting words. May we kindle within us the warmth of compassion, the light of understanding, and the fire of commitment to build a brighter future for all. Let us enter now into the centering time of our platform. Each week, we ring this chime in solidarity with people around the world. Today, I am particularly mindful of all who are overworked and underpaid. As we listen to the chime, let us remember our connection to each other and the world around us. Let us open our hearts to compassion for those who suffer. And let us commit ourselves to the work that calls for our love. As we continue with the centering part of our platform, I invite you to take in a nourishing breath, to cherish that breath within you, and to release your breath. Breathe in, receiving the beauty and the power of this moment of mindfulness. Breathe out, sharing intentions for loving kindness. Breathe in, remembering your connection with all life. Breathe out, remembering that you are part of the life of the world. Breathe in, being present with this very moment. Breathe out, being present with this very moment. We continue our meditation in silence and in the music that follows. Thanks again, Perry. Today's reading is from Ruha Benjamin's 2023 USC School of Ed commencement speech. The more steeped I am in the facts of inequity and injustice, the more I've come to appreciate the importance of imagination as a field of struggle, not an ephemeral afterthought that we have the luxury to dismiss or romanticize. Social imagination, moral imagination, decolonial, anti-racist, and collective imagination, because schools have the potential to be laboratories of radically expansive imagination rather than places where inequality continues to be reproduced. Our role as educators is to incubate a better world in the minds and hearts of our students. Our platform speaker today is Senior Leader Casey Slack. Their talk is Towards Justice and Equity.
Thank you, Emily. Before I get started today, a couple of little disclaimers. One, when I start, what I'm talking about is not going to seem connected to the theme. I promise you we will get there. Two, I am not the news, and I am committed to not being the news. But sometimes something happens and I have to say something about it. Sub-disclaimer. Things happen all the time that would be worth saying something about. And as I go to talk about the wrongful death of a child, I am aware that in this country and around the world, children die for all kinds of wrong reasons. In fact, there are no right reasons for a child to die. So as I go to speak about Nex Benedict, as I am about to, I just want to note that also on my heart are the children of Palestine, the children of Israel, the children of the Sudan, and the children of Southeast DC, who all live in contexts that do not allow for their flourishing, that in fact crush imagination and often enough life out of them. Oh, it is. Wow. Nex Benedict was in 10th grade. Nex Benedict was non-binary and indigenous, had been experiencing bullying at school. Nex had told their teachers and the administration, who did not do anything. Nex was using the girls' bathroom at their school because at their school there was a girls' bathroom and a boys' bathroom, and in their state there was a law that said they had to use the bathroom that matched the sex they were assigned at birth. I can't bear to say what happened next. But you read the news. And if you haven't, you are capable of searching for it and finding the details for yourself. The details are not the point. The point is that Nex Benedict should be alive. The point is that that school, those adults who were responsible for them, should have taken care of them. Should have taken care of them before there was time for injury to happen. The point is that the police should not have come to Nex's hospital room and said that they were as much at fault as the girls who smashed their head against the floor were. But there is video of that. The point is that the governor of Oklahoma got on a microphone he knew was live, said on purpose that that filth didn't belong in Oklahoma. When asked about the death of a child, we don't live in Oklahoma, but people do. People who matter, who are every bit as human as the rest of us. It is easy to say, well, then don't live in Oklahoma, or to look at the IVF ruling in Alabama and say, well, then don't live in Alabama. But friends, moving is hard. I have moved across the country twice. It has been very, very expensive. I've been lucky to be able to leave my home state where transitioning would have been harder than it was in California. Lucky to be able to choose to live in DC or Maryland, where I'm not at risk of the state government deciding that I don't get to have my hormones anymore, or that I have to use a bathroom that doesn't feel comfortable for me. But if I lived in Virginia, right? It's easy to feel further away from it than we are. Nex Benedict should be alive. They should have gotten to become a real live trans adult. They should have gotten to grow old and make decisions about who they were gonna be. They don't get to. Other people decided that they wouldn't get to. Other people, the adults responsible for them at school. Other people, the police. Other people, the governor of Oklahoma, who, by the way, also stated that Oklahoma is a Christian state. Sometimes people say things that make me wish I believed in hell. So I had to say that. It needed to. Felt like it would be wrong to be a non-binary person with a platform and not mention not only my own grief about it, but the things it means about everywhere. The things it means about what our non-binary kids and teenagers are experiencing. Because whether they read the news or not, and I would imagine that at least our teenagers probably are pretty damn aware of the news, if they're not trans or non-binary, they know someone who is, and this is personal. Maybe you have a kid who is trans, non-binary, who's just kind of thinking about it. Maybe you have a grandkid. Maybe you do and you don't know yet. So there are two things that come up over and over again when something trans tragedy related is in the news. The first one is the world's worst conversation about biology. People who maybe passed 10th grade biology, maybe, who now would like you to know that basic biology says, friends, that's not how science works. Science observes what is true and reports back. Science does not tell you what ought to be. Also, have a big language problem. And I'm gonna do a little bit of biology, trans stuff 101 right now because it fits, and because thinking about what words mean is part of what we're up to today. So you will see things like biological sex is. Biological sex is a lot of things, right? I'm gonna put a little underscore here for those who don't know me as well. I am also a sex educator. I am an expert on this thing. I have taught sex ed in classes around Los Angeles County. I have taught sex ed in congregations, in schools, in all kinds of places to people who are as young as kindergarten and as old as any of you are. Biological sex, if you are speaking from the perspective of science and public health, is a combination of attributes consisting of chromosomes, right, the stuff that's written in your genetics, which, sidebar, unless you've had genetic testing, you don't know what your chromosomes are. And most of us have never had genetic testing. Then there is a level of things that are called primary sex characteristics. Broadly speaking, that is what kind of genitals you got born with. And broadly speaking, what happens is you are born and a doctor looks at your genitals and says, that looks like a vagina or that looks like a penis, and they assign you the rest of the stuff based on that. Now, it is probably enough that there are a number of documented cases of people with XY chromosomes who have functional uteruses and ovaries who give birth to children to say that XY is vulva, or XX is vulva, is womanhood, is maybe not a line that really exists. But let's go another step. Because the other thing that biological sex is what we call secondary sex characteristics. Secondary sex characteristics is all the stuff that doesn't show up until you're in puberty, right? Facial hair, different distributions of body fat, the way your bones structure themselves, breasts, how your muscles grow, etc. That whole set of things depends on what hormones your body winds up having in it. The whole realm of secondary sex characteristics is actually remarkably mutable. So when we talk about trans stuff, we often get to this place where people will say, well, biological sex is one thing and gender is another thing, and they are, because gender is the cultural stuff layered on top of all of that biological stuff. But that's a useless differentiation in this context. You can, in fact, meaningfully change the thing that is your sex. At least the thing that is your secondary sex characteristics can be very easily changed. I put a gel on every morning and my voice is quite deeper than it used to be. I grow facial hair now. It's different. So there is that piece. And when we're not speaking the same language, right? When some people are saying biological sex and they mean chromosomes, and they have maybe a weird idea of what chromosomes mean, well, that's a very different conversation than if biological sex is primary sex characteristics or secondary sex characteristics or a collection of all three. I walk back and forth. And gender is something else entirely. I was reaching for a metaphor yesterday, and I wound up at chromosomes and primary sex characteristics are like the soil underneath the garden you would like to plant. It's there, it's happening. You can do some stuff with it to make it fit better for your project or worse. Secondary sex characteristics are more like what kind of soil you put on top, what kind of fertilizer you give to the ground you've already got, if you try to change the soil or don't. And gender is like what kinds of shapes you make your flower beds in, right? And we think kind of that there are only circles and squares, but like you could make a heart-shaped flower bed if you felt like it. And gender roles are like the pre-constructed flower beds that you can buy and just kind of pop on. And they usually don't fit anyone particularly well, but they do good enough for enough people that they're pretty popular. My other favorite way to think about gender stuff is if we all go out for a hot beverage, and at the hot beverage place, they offer coffee and tea. How many of you will pick coffee, given the choice between coffee and tea? Okay. How many of you will pick tea? Okay. Will some of you pick nothing? Yeah. Okay. We go out for a different hot beverage. And at this particular hot beverage place, you can customize your drink any old way you'd like. You could get hot coffee, you could get cold coffee, you could get hot tea, you could get cold tea, you could get boba. You could get syrups put in, you could, right? Do you have a specific thing that you will pick in that context? Will it be maybe different than the person sitting next to you? Could you clump some of them together as coffee drinks and some of them together as tea drinks? Yeah, sure. But that's not the only category you could make. And sometimes something will be just different enough that calling it a coffee drink or a tea drink might be strange, and some people like hot chocolate anyway, so what are we doing? So that is the Trans Stuff 101 piece of our time together this morning. The next thing that comes up every time there is trans tragedy in the news is that everybody wants to tell trans people about it. This thing happens where something bad happens, and suddenly, everybody, people I have not spoken to in years, want to tell me, did you know that somebody like you died? Now, why in the hell would you do that? I know, first of all. The second thing that happens is that then people start telling you about every single bad thing they've heard about happening to a trans person. I'm told by my friends of color that this happens to people of color and Black people in particular every time there is racism in the news, every time there is a death of a Black person in public. People start saying, oh yeah, well one time I heard somebody. Do not do that. But the thing that is really related here is that there is a model of care that you can think about, where most affected people live in the middle. And the deal is that you dump out and care in, right? So if you are a cis person with a trans child, you're like pretty close in there, but you are not in the middle. And you can talk to your cis friends who don't have trans children. That is a place to dump your feelings out onto someone who has less of an intense experience of it. And you care in towards your trans child, right? That whole frame, give care to the people who need the care, give your stress to the people who need it less, that thing is equity, right? That thing is recognizing that in some moments, different people have different needs. That the path towards everybody getting the stuff they need sometimes, often, involves everybody getting something slightly different. There is some difficulty with the word equity in the public sphere. Because what is equity and what is equality, and are these things in competition, or are they pieces of the same thing? And then you have this piece that is the active attempt to destroy efforts at diversity, equity, and inclusion based on some weird definitions of critical race theory and wokeness. I never hear another person say woke again. That will be just entirely too soon for me. It means nothing at this point. So I'm going to stay over here where things mean something. Equity and equality are not in competition. They are pieces of the same project. Much of the common American sense of what equality is comes from our decision to have laws that apply to everybody equally. If you go back in history, and you don't have to go back that far, you probably could go several places on the planet right now and find that the case was and sometimes is that a crime committed by one person against one person is a bigger deal than a crime committed by one person against one person is. Specifically, if you go back to like Hammurabi, you have this situation where a poor person, an enslaved person, killing another enslaved person matters almost not at all. There is barely a crime there. But anyone killing an aristocrat is a big deal, unless it's a higher level aristocrat, in which case that was their right. So that's pretty messed up. And we made a good choice in deciding not to do that, in deciding to have laws that should be evenly applied. But I have a question. If, for example, the fine for getting caught speeding by a camera is $100. It is, sidebar. Is that a crime for someone who makes $1 million a year? Does $100 matter? Is it a crime for somebody who barely scratches by, makes $20,000 or $30,000 a year? Yeah, $100 matters a lot if you don't have money. But $100 if you are already paying $8,000 a month in rent or mortgage is like nothing. That's like if they charged me a quarter. So do our equal laws have equal impact? That's an important question. Then I'll ask you another question, which you may or may not know the answer to. What is the difference between crack and cocaine? Baking soda. Yeah, the difference is baking soda. Penalties for cocaine are, and have always been, lower than penalties for crack. It's the same drug. It's active, agents are the same, it causes the same effects. They are equally chemically addictive, but wealthy white people do cocaine, and poor black people do crack. Are our equal laws equal? They are not. And when we move away from laws and their application, we get things like a city says, we want to help our children and our schools be better. And they say, we're going to give $10,000 for each student. But some kids go to a school that has had money for generations. Some kids go to a school where their parents already were filling in those gaps without having to stretch their pocketbooks that far. And some people go to schools that were not like that. Some people go to schools that were falling down when the $10,000 came in and oops, there went all the money. And it was a good use of the money, even. Maybe there was asbestos in the building and you said, well, we got to get that out. But was that $10,000 per student equitable? Did they all need the same $10,000? Equality and equity are pieces of the same project. Equity asks us to think about what does everybody need? Equality asks us to think about being fair, just slightly different positions, right? Neither of them says we want exactly equal outcomes, because that is also ridiculous. People are not the same as each other. They will not have identical outcomes. But the collection of them says, let's give everybody an equal shot. Let's give everybody the things they need to get where they might like to go. You literally can't know what people are capable of if they haven't had the resources to potentially get there. And then justice is this other piece, right? Justice is the piece of this that says Not only do we think we should use resources equitably across people, not only do we think that we should address where imbalance has happened, but we should adjust the system so that the system stops creating the exact same imbalance. So that we don't have to say, well, $10,000 over here means different than $10,000 over here, so change it around. So that in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years for sure, we can say, yeah, everybody can get $10,000. And that's gonna be an equal addition to the lives of all of these people. I'm doing a lot of very blown out talking, a lot of in the public sphere talking, but I want us to kind of pull it back in. In our interactions with each other, in our desire to build a brighter future for all, we need to think about equity, equality, and justice there as well. Because we're not all having the same experience of being on the planet. We are all equally imbued with inherent worth and dignity, but we are not all living in the same world as far as how we've been treated around that. So sometimes that means someone will have an intense response to something you say, and it won't immediately make sense to you. Why? I made a weird mistake the other day. I was talking to my boyfriend who lives in Canada. I promise you he's real. He does live in Canada. And we were talking about ways that we have described ourselves on dating sites over the course of our collective way too many years dating people. And I think of my boyfriend as Black, and he mentioned that he has described himself as mixed race. Both of these things are actually true because race and ethnicity are complicated. But I said, oh, I hadn't thought that you would describe yourself that way. My boyfriend is Canadian, Jamaican, and my frame around race is very American. And so he had a little bit of a response, and I had a little bit of a response, and it was fine. But I use this to illustrate that we can, even with the people we know and love best, make mistakes that cause these little moments of jumpiness and unsettled, these little moments of needing to be corrected. Because we all live inside our own little frames, and even if you think about it a lot, and boy, I think about it a lot, sometimes you say something and somebody else's response is not what you're expecting. And it can be easy to get all tensed up and reaffirm your stance because, no, I see the world this way. But the point of relationship, right? The point of being together is to let ourselves have a wider frame, to let ourselves learn from each other in a context where, like my interaction with my boyfriend, it can be oops, ouch, rather than an entire blow up, right? Where we can trust each other enough that I can say, hey, don't tell me about every bad thing that's happened to a trans person. And somebody else can say, oh, right. And I can say it's okay, and they can say it's okay, and we can move forward with better behavior, right? The point of being together is learning about each other's perspectives. And while we do that, we have to remember that the rest of the world happens too. The rest of the world happens to all of us. I don't think anybody gets through it without being punched quite a bit by the system. Even the people who are statistically most privileged experience the pain of this world, the brokenness of this world. None of us gets out of this either alive or undamaged. And we can notice that perhaps a woman has experienced being told that she doesn't have the authority to do something simply by virtue of being a woman, enough times that the implication might hurt, even if you didn't mean it. And we can understand that people of color and Black people in particular might be a little bit sensitive around conversations about race. And that's not sensitivity that they shouldn't have. It is the reasonable response to a world which has been beating them up about it. Queer people, trans people, poor people, people with disabilities, fat people, older people, and very much younger people all get pushed to the side and kind of banged around about our identities. We just try to keep it in our minds when we're interacting. We try to remember this is a whole person with a whole set of experiences that I cannot know, but I have some guideposts as to what they might be. That's one of the ways that we build equity and justice among us in our interpersonal relationships. That's one of those ways that we elicit the best in each other and ourselves. And when we do that, when we step out into the world, we are less likely to say, let me be in charge of something I just arrived at, right? More likely to be able to say, this community has been leading on this issue. Let's listen to them. Let's learn what they've been doing before we add our ideas. When we step out into the world, we're more able to see where collaboration is possible rather than charity or paternalism, which can be problems when people who really want to do good things go out into the world and are like, we're going to fix this, except for that what you fix is not something anybody asked you for. I think, for the most part, this community has a good grasp on a lot of this, but it is worth underlining. We all deserve a place where everybody gets to be whole. I think we start doing that here. We start doing that by caring for each other, by lifting each other up where it makes sense, and changing the shape of things where it makes sense. You will notice we did not leave the microphone all the way up in the air knowing that Laura was going to come speak at it. All we have to do is think about that people exist. Remember that people exist and have personal needs. Easier said than done, but I trust you to continue to be on that journey with me. I hope that you can trust me to continue to be on that journey with you as well, and that we can all live into a world that damages us less, that leaves our children more alive, literally and also figuratively, right? Literally alive and also vibrantly in the world. I believe in that possibility. I believe in that possibility and community more than I believe in any other thing. That is why I do this. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your presence. And thank you for the way I often see you treating each other, which is considerate of each other's needs. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Casey. In a few minutes, we'll have our community sharing time when we can write into the chat or share in person what resonated with you in this platform. While we listen to today's musical response, you might prepare by reflecting on a personal experience or an activity at WES that the platform brings to mind. And Carl Pfeiffer. Thank you, Carl. This is the time when we add our own voices to the morning, sharing our reflections on the platform or what resonates with our personal experience. For our online participants, I invite you to share in the Zoom chat or in the comments if you're watching this video later. And if you're in person, you can come up towards the mic here on the floor, share your brief comment so that others may also share. I'm going to start with Zoom. I see, scrolling. I don't know if this is Michelle or Tom, but one of them wrote, woke is from the AAVE and means alert to racial prejudice and discrimination. That word has been co-opted by people who are scared to admit that there is racism. The term should be reclaimed to its proper meaning. Peter writes, it was great to hear Casey expounding on trans issues. Some of their points were ones I'm not familiar with. It helped me see the entire range of other intersectional issues dealing with racism, sexism, ageism, ableism, size issues. Judy, our chat usher, also added, sorry, getting bumped around. Okay. Casey, as ever, I loved your teaching. That's what I have decided your platform addresses are. One of my many sayings is, quote, we each carry around our own universe in our head, close quote. Cynthia, thanks you for a great platform. It's important distinction between equity and equality. You clarified that for me. It's really about what each individual needs rather than everyone getting the same thing regardless of their situation. And Hannah writes, thank you for the platform today, Casey, with such clear macro and micro analogies. She also wants to share her thanks for all of the good wishes from the WES community this past week as she recovered from surgery, and she's happy to report she's on the steady upswing. You come, as we have our first in-person check on Zoom again, I just wanted to kind of also resonate with Hannah that sometimes our best is not what we expect or hopeful. It's not necessarily going to be better than the last, but it is what we try to do each day.
Hi, Perry, he, him. You may have noticed when I was playing the meditation music that the slide said credited to Thad Jones. I've played that song before, and some of you may remember me mentioning that it was actually composed by pianist Roland Hanna when he was playing in the Thad Jones Mel Lewis Orchestra. Thanks to Wikipedia, I can now provide a fuller story of how that came about. This is a paraphrase. David Berger, who was at the Village Vanguard Jazz Club for most of the band's gigs in the early years, remembers Hanna developing the song over many weeks during his improvised solo features. Thad Jones showed up one night with a full band arrangement of what Hanna had been playing. Hanna confirmed the story in an interview. I said, Thad, isn't that my tune? He said, no, it's mine. If there were ever any hard feelings, Hanna appears to have let them go. He excuses Jones's pilfering as akin to Duke Ellington appropriating melodies improvised by his sidemen. I never faulted Thad for that because he was just doing what band leaders did, Hanna said. If you throw an idea out there, he'd take it and write it down. So I just thought that the theme this month being children and labor, this was an interesting story of how one person gets credit for somebody else's work.
Good morning. My name is Wayne, pronouns he and him. Casey ended platform today by focusing on appreciating the respect that we share in this community, a respect that grows out of care for others. I participate in this community first because I come here on platform Sunday and I see friends and colleagues, and I don't know everybody here, but sometimes I have conversations with somebody that I've seen regularly, but we really haven't connected. And that's great. I've also belonged to other sub-communities in WES. I'm a member of the WES team that responds to, that puts out the Caring News, Caring team, and I'm also participate in the Aging with Intention group. And yesterday, I had the opportunity to sort of bring those two things together. I had an opportunity. The Caring Committee wanted to reach out to a slightly broader community and see if there was interest in participating when members of the community express a need for support or help, or you are aware of somebody who maybe would appreciate a helping hand to reach out and connect with them. And I was quite surprised by the response of those who participated in the Aging with Intention group about the interest in being more proactive in responding when needs are identified. So that's one of the ways I take some pleasure and feel a connection to this community.
Hi, I'm Karen Sheeher. I was not sure if I was going to come speak. So I hope I can keep my thoughts in line and going in a useful direction. So I am a cisgender woman, white, middle-aged. And there's a lot of privilege that comes with that. There are also some lack of privilege that comes with that. At least 10 years ago, if not more, I was speaking to my then boss, who was the best boss I've ever had. A wonderful person, male, significantly, somewhat older than me. And we were putting together a document. I may not get this under 2 minutes, but I will try. We were putting together a document, and I noticed at the time that it was very gendered. Now, at that time, I was not versed at all. It was not in my mind to think of non-binary or trans. I was very much thinking about male and female, he and her. But I was looking at this document, and it was making several references to things like we needed a doorman and we needed a seamstress. And I said, hey, I'd really like to make this more inclusive, that can we just make it so that we need somebody who stitches and somebody who is at the door? But we didn't really have words for that. And he pushed back and basically said something to the effect of, that was silly. And to my surprise, I got really mad. And I said, I used to believe, like you, that when people said all men are created equal, that meant me too. That was inclusive of me. And I accepted that. And I said, but the older I've gotten, and the more I have learned that for men, to be called a woman is one of the worst insults you can throw at them. I said, I will no longer believe that you mean me when you say all men. So again, he is the best boss in the world because he just kind of accepted that and let me say that to his face. But I think about that, fast forwarding to today and the last few years, when I am being educated about how that must feel for people who are trans, who are non-binary, who don't fit into that she and he mode. The reason why I said cisgender, middle-aged and all that, white woman, is because a lot of people my age and a little bit older feel very comfortable talking to me about pronouns and their discomfort with using they, them, her, hers, that sort of thing. And I try to gauge my conversation with them to help them as best I can as I'm learning to say why I feel it is important to use those pronouns that the people choose for themselves, that are right for themselves. And so I wanted to use this moment because I don't always say it as strongly as I should in that moment, because I don't want to push them too hard. I want to meet them where they are and try and help them, but sometimes I often feel like I don't do enough. And so when I hear the stories like you told today, and I had heard about it as well, and I think about the fact that for people who don't fit into that cisgender privilege that I have, to make them feel safe when they come to you by saying, I see you, I respect you, I will use the pronouns that you have told me that you are, and I will use them proudly and with love. That's why it's important to me to use the pronouns.
Hi, Shirley, she, her. I've mentioned here in other times that my father was most likely homeless at the end of his life. And how, various ways that affected me. And I think after I was 11, I saw him maybe 5 very brief times when he would stop in, sometimes for a half an hour. And the last time I was probably about 20. And I remember that the last few times I saw him, I was pretty mean to him. I was very angry that everything that was wrong in my life was his fault, and it didn't go very well. And my brother called me or texted me the other day. He was 7 years younger than I was, so he really doesn't even remember my father, but that he was going to be in a place sometime soon where he was only an hour or so from where my father is buried in Arkansas. And he was going to go to the gravesite and talk to him. And he wanted to know if there was anything I wanted to say to my father. And I thought about it, and and it kept coming back to the same thing. I wanted to say, I'm sorry that the last times I had a chance to be with you, I was mean to you and I turned you away. And I think that I am a much more loving, less judgmental, more caring person now, in part because of you remembering that. And I think about things I didn't know or never asked, like I'm pretty sure my mother told him if he was going to drink alcohol not to come in the house. And so he didn't. And that was a way of caring for the children, really. We didn't see it that way. I couldn't understand why he didn't come in till after we went to bed, but I think that was what it was. And we probably asked him to stay away, but I don't know, because I never asked him. So I sent my apologies, and my brother was a little startled by that, but so was I.
Thank you. We have one more comment on Zoom, which was an appreciation of Carl sharing his music as one of our younger musicians today, or in general. So thank you all who shared your thoughts and attention. Just as we share our perspectives in this community, so too do we share our resources and gifts. Here at WES, we split all undesignated gifts in the Sunday collection between our operating budget and a fund dedicated to justice and compassion. During the month of February, we are pleased to support We Are DC Action. They advocate for public policies that support kids at every step from early childhood to early adulthood. So let's all take a moment to prepare to respond to the invitation to generosity as we are able. To donate online through simple gift system, text an amount to 202-335-1885. You can go to tiny.cc/wesgives or click on Give on the website, ethicalsociety.org. To donate in person today, you can place cash or check in the basket in the back of the hall on your way out, and you can always send a check by mail. So thank you for your generosity. We will receive your gifts and the gift of music. Thank you so much to the many people who helped create this morning's time together. Today's platform speaker, Casey Slack, and musicians Perry Biter, Carl Pfeiffer, and coming up, we'll also hear from Jeffrey Taggart. Staff members Indara Miles, Robin Kravitz, and Maceo Thomas. And of course, our platform production volunteers, the tech team members, slide artists, Zoom chat usher, and in-person greeters. Got a whole bunch of announcements. We do have a lot of stuff happening today, so if you're here in person or gonna come in soonish, we've got the Death Cafe today at 12:30 here in the main hall, where we'll eat snacks and discuss death and dying in a safe, judgment-free space. We'll increase awareness of death to help people make the most of their finite lives and discuss grief. So it's again 12:30 here. Then on Zoom, we've got the Sci-Fi Fantasy Book Club at 1:30, and also on Zoom, we also have the mental health support group today at 2 p.m. All of those links are on the website, as well as the news and notes emails. Then looking ahead to next Sunday, March 3rd, we again get to hear from Casey, who will speak on change, growth, and letting things be over, with music from DC Labor Chorus. And then after platform, on that Sunday, we have the LLDC Skill Building Workshop, 12:30 to 2 in the social hall, which is right across the way. Let's work together to build our skills. In this discussion-based peer learning session, we will explore ways to empower others as a part of our leadership. We will also address personal characteristics that pose difficulties in leading others, such as the urge for perfectionism. You can RSVP on the link in the email, the website, or contact Alex Abbott for any questions. And then coming up after that, we join the lifelong learning team via Zoom on Monday, March 11th for the final session in the future planning series, where we will discuss caring for someone's remains after they are deceased. There are a lot more options than the traditional funeral or cremation. And there's a great RSVP link that you can use so they can have that heads up how many are coming. And then spring is approaching, so is the annual pledge campaign. Mark your calendars for Sunday, March 17th. After platform, there'll be a pledge brunch held here in the main hall to kick off our 2024-2025 pledge campaign. Stay tuned for more details. And as we said, brunch, so there's food and more opportunities to socialize and chat. And then you won't want to miss the next Community Relations Committee session on Sunday, March 24th, 12:30, when we'll, here at the social hall, we'll explore the urgency within us that causes unrealistic expectations and how we can replace it with compassionate practices. So hopefully you got all that. And if you need a reminder, website, email, I believe that is it for announcements. So make sure to connect with the weekly news and notes email and the calendar page at ethicalsociety.org. Again, if you are new to our community, please introduce yourself in person or via the connection form at tiny.cc/wesconnects, or email wes@ethicalsociety.org. Mention there are also those forms at the welcome table that you can put into the basket or hand off to a greeter. And at the conclusion of platform, please join us for social hour, either here in the hallway or on Zoom at tiny.cc/wescoffeehour. I now invite you to join in our closing sing-along music and closing words.
Never been ready to make music under such fragile circumstances. Thank you, everyone, for your words and your music. Brought tears to my eyes. Please sing along. 1, 2, 3. Which side of history will I be on? When I made up my mind, I'm dead and gone. Did I attack? Did I fight back? Which side of history will I be on? Which side of history will I defend? When I said my piece and made amends, did I assist? Did I resist? Which side of history will I defend? I want to be on the right side. 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 I want to be on the right side of history. rights. I'm talking human rights. I'm talking human rights. I'm talking human rights. I'm talking human rights. I'm talking right side of history. I'm talking human rights. I'm talking human rights. I'm talking human rights. Talking human rights. Talking human rights. Talking human rights side of history. I'm on the side of equal rights. On the side of workers' rights. On the side of civil rights. On the side of voting rights. On the side of migrant rights. On the side of human rights side of history. One beyond the right side. 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 I won't be on the right side of history.
Thank you. And now for our closing words. Let us go into the week ahead with compassion, understanding, and commitment, caring for all children as our own, and building a more just and equitable world today. Thank you all for joining today's platform in person or remotely. We look forward to connecting with you again soon.